All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our inside out project 400. First thing that we want to do is we know that we're going to work out of a repository, and we're going to be basically trying to mimic a real live development situation scenario. And so to begin that, we're going to just go ahead and create a new repository. Creating a new repository, we could do it by using the plus up here and saying new repository, or we could just click on this new button because we're in the repositories tab. The repository we're going to create is 4xx, and down below we're going to let it be public, and we're going to initialize it with a readme file, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to say create repository. This is where all of our steps are going to go, and you can see our repository has been created. We have 4xx, and we have the readme file in here. This is really just what displays down here, and we'll be updating that as we move through this step. While we're in here, the next thing that we want to do is we want to go into our settings for that repository, and we want to enable GitHub Pages. This gives us a real live preview of our HTML, CSS, JavaScript site. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it to master, because throughout the project we're going to treat master as though it is a production line of code, meaning it's the code that actually goes out to the server. And you can see we have the link right here to go and see our site. It takes a little bit for it to set up. So right now it's pulling the readme file, and that's what we see, and it looks like it's pretty much ready to go. So with that said, that creates our repository. At this point we have a nice clean repository, and we're ready to move on to our next step. And to do that, our next step, we want to go ahead and set up our local host. And we want to clone this repository down, so we're going to click on our clone or download, and we're going to copy this link here. And at this point we're going to go ahead and we're going to go out to our Cmder. Our Cmder essentially is how we control our Git repo locally. And what I've done is I've navigated into the WAMP 64, because we should have WAMP installed on our machine. If you don't, you might want to stop now and go and install that. There's another video for that. And at the root of our local host is our www folder, and that's where we want to keep our sites, and our repository is essentially a site. And so what we're going to do is do a git clone and then paste that in there, and you can see that's the link that we copied. And when we do that, it'll copy the repository down and actually create the folder for us for 4xx. We can see now that it successfully did that by reading up here and cloned it to 4xx, and we can just do a change directory into 4xx, and we see that we have our repository in here. We have our master origin sitting right there, and we are now good to go as far as we have our repo on, and we also have our GitHub repo created, so that we can push our work up and save our work as we go. Now that we have our GitHub repository created and copied down to our local host, the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and create our subdomain for our 4xx project, inside out project. So what we'll do with that is we're going to go out to Agabus Hosting, and we're going to log in. We're going to go to hosted domains under my domains, hosted domains, and then we're going to say create subdomain. In here we're going to put in our 4xx to create our subdomain. We're going to make sure that we select our insideoutproject.com or whatever your domain name is. Mine is insideoutproject. The important thing is that we're creating this 4xx subdomain, and we're going to say add host. We've created that, and we'll go ahead and validate that we've created that, and we'll see that it's right here. And if we click on it, we'll see the information. And if we click on that and we bring up the domain information and we click on that, it'll take us out to the cheesy marketing page that goes in there by default. And we'll get rid of that in a little bit. But the first thing we want to do is we want to immediately go ahead and set our domain up to be secure. The way that we do that is we click on this button, Edit Subdomain. And when we click on that button, we get a dialog box that says Edit Host. In here is where we want to, there's two things that we need to make sure are happen. First of all, our IP address. It needs to be on a available shared IP address for SSLs. We can get more into that in other videos, but essentially what we want to do is assign the SSL certificate from request Let's Encrypt SSL. It's a free service that's out there for us to use to actually assign a SSL certificate. So you want to make sure that that's what's selected. It normally gets selected when you select that shared IP. And you would think that this would say save, but it says edit host. We have to click that to apply these changes. When we apply those changes, what we do see, what happens, is our subdomain, our 4xx domain, all of a sudden goes from this red dot, which was previously there, to this, there is a Let's Encrypt SSL installed for this domain. The thing about it, when you apply that, it doesn't necessarily, if I go ahead and I click and I go out and I see that, I see our marketing page that's there. But if I go ahead and put in https:// and hit enter, it does not work yet. It takes a little bit of time for it to apply. So don't worry if you go out and you try to test the HTTPS right away. It's not going to work immediately. At this point, we've created our subdomain, and we want to be able to access it through Dreamweaver. That is our IDE of choice at the moment. And so the way that we do that is we go to Files, FTP Accounts, and we create an FTP account that goes directly to that domain. You can see I actually have one created here. I'll go ahead and delete that, just so that we can create one. So we click Create FTP Account, and we're going to use the username student. Even though the password might automatically fill in for you, make sure that you type in raccpass. Make sure that your 4xx subdomain is selected. This path should be www.4x. whatever your domain name is, and it should automatically be filled in. Hit Add FTP Account. At this point, we actually have our subdomain set up, and what we want to do is copy this information right there, highlight it, and hit Control-C. And we have all the information we need, with the exception of the password, to go ahead and set up our Dreamweaver and connect it to our new subdomain account. So now that we have it set up and our FTP user set up, and we have our FTP username copied, we're going to go ahead and we are going to link everything together through Dreamweaver. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go to Site, New Site, and we're going to call this site just simply 4xx. We're going to browse out to our local site folder, to our www folder, and we're going to find that 4xx folder. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to select the folder. We can see that it's pointing to our 4xx folder. We named the site 4xx, and that's good. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to link to our server. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add new server. And this server name, what we're going to do is we're going to copy the full FTP account name, username in there, and we're going to just get rid of the student underscore. We want to know what server this is pointing to, so that we always have that information. We're going to take that username and we're going to paste that in there, and then we're going to just take our server, the same information that we've put up here. We could actually just take that and we're going to copy that and we're going to put that into our FTP address. We're going to enter our password, which is raccpass, and we're going to test it. And hopefully you get what I got, which is you are connected. At this point, we're connected. We can see that we're pointing to our FTP server, and we're going to save it. It saves our server information. We have our site information, and we're going to save that as well. At this point, we should be able to see our readme file. In seeing our readme file, we should also be able to navigate out to our remote, which is our web host, the subdomain that we set up. And we should see the index.xhtml file there, which we do. Let's go back to our local view. And inside of our local view, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and right click on our readme file, and we want to say edit with Dreamweaver. And inside of there, what we want to do is add one line, and that line is going to be https:///4xx dot, and then your domain name. Inside, mine is insideoutproject.com, and we'll go ahead and we'll save that. We'll close that file, and then the next thing that we want to do is we definitely want to create an index file. And so we're going to say new file, and we're going to call it index.html, and we're going to open that file up. If you're in Dreamweaver, it will already have HTML5, the core of HTML5 embedded in it. And we're going to put inside out project, and let's put 4xx. Let's copy that. Let's go ahead inside our body tags. Let's put an h1, just so we have that information there. Let's save it, and we'll close it. And now we're going to synchronize our site. We can use it, actually just use this button here to synchronize our site. We get presented with the dialog box. Are you sure you want to synchronize the entire site? Get and put newer files. Delete remote files not on local drive, meaning anything that's not on our drive that is on this server, let's get rid of. And we're going to preview it. At this point, we're presented in Dreamweaver with a dialog box, and we want to get rid of that promotional file, right? So we'll highlight that. It says to get it, but we're going to highlight it and mark it by clicking on the trash can and tell it that we want to delete it, and we're going to say OK. It's going to ask us if we really want to delete it. We're going to say yes. And at this point, if we go up here and we look at remote, we should actually see an exact replica of what we have on local. Furthermore, if we go out here and we actually go to our site now, which is 4xx insideoutproject.com. That's mine. You'll see your title, you'll see your H1, and we know that we've successfully done a push. At this point, you might be tempted. Go ahead and try. See if your SSL has applied yet. And you can see that mine has, and the way that we know that is it says secure, and we're HTTPS, and we actually have, we're looking at that file. So at this point, we've successfully updated our local, and if we go into our localhost and we scroll down, we should see under our projects, because it's in the www folder, we should actually see our 4xx, and if we click on it, we should go in it and we should see exactly basically what we see up there. The difference here in text size is because of the zoom factor. I'm at 90% there and 100% there. Awesome. So with that, we know that all is well, all is good. We're going to go ahead, and what we want to do is take our changes that we've done, and we want to commit them to our master branch in our 4xx before we actually start doing project work. And the way that we do that, first thing we want to do is we want to check out and see, let Git know what has changed. So we do git status. We can see that the readme has been modified. The index.html has been added. Notes, which is just Dreamweaver crap, has been added. So what we want to do is we want to add them. To the staging area. And at this point they should come up green, meaning that Git recognizes them and they are ready to be committed. And so now we'll do a git commit, and we'll put a message in there, and we'll say initial push from local to GitHub to begin our project. Go ahead and commit it, and then of course we want to do a git push. We want to do it to the origin. Origin is aligned to the Git path that we have to our GitHub, and we want to say master. It's looking for my username. This does happen. I'm going to go ahead and put my Git username in, and then it wants my password. When you type in your password, it does not reflect the password, but it actually, while you're typing, it is capturing the keystrokes. And if we go out, we can actually prove that by taking a look, and if we refresh, we can see that the index was pushed up and the code that we put in was placed there. If we go back out and we look at our readme, we can see that our information was put in there. And the reason we put the link in the readme file is because also readme is displayed in here, and that will actually take us out to our Git project website. So at this point, we're actually ready to get started on our project and move on to step 400. So you are now completely set up and ready to go. So we will see you in step 400.